And okay, we are good. So hello, Catherine MacDiarmid. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks, Stephanie. Yeah.
We were just chatting. I'm like, I think I should press record. I need to start this to get this going because I'll just chat with you forever. Thank you so much for doing this. I am so excited. I am so excited to chat with you today. And um, I feel like I'm talking, well, for me, a very humongous celebrity because I was rewatching Sky Arts competition and then was going all over YouTube like watching episodes, and just watching you work is just, I'm in awe, and it's beautiful, and I can't wait to just learn more about you in terms of everything. So
Oh, thank you.
first and foremost, so little intro into this in terms of me. So when we were in our first lockdown, as there have been many, and I binged watched the Sky Arts competition. So that is when I first saw you, and it was in the introduction of your story. And first of all, again, your talent. We're going to get into that later, but I'll just keep saying it. Is so amazing. But it was your story and sort of background that they kind of talked about you with how you were balancing painting full time as well as having a family and balancing that between your children, and how you were able to do that, and how difficult it was at times. And there was how they described it, and what sat with me was they were describing kind of how you were a commissioned artist, you've been working at it for a while, but then it was the comment that was said about how trying to find time in between the kids and in between sometimes when they would go to bed, and like that's when you had the time to paint. And that sat like it hit me. I don't know why, but it was just like I get that, and I connect with that. And it's so easy to just be tired and then not do it and not want to go into the space or studio or kitchen table, whatever it is, wherever the space is. But just being so tired at the end of the day that it's finding that space for yourself and sort of your own passion or craft. And that just I followed you ever. And then I remember I grabbed my phone, I'm like, where's my phone? And then I got Instagram, and then I'm like, who is this lady? And then yeah, it was
Oh,
just like this. I want to meet her. I'm like, I want to talk to her. And then fell in love with, again, your talent is just, it's a beautifully inspired thing. So
thank you.
my first question that I wanted to ask you is, when did you start painting? Like, when did this happen? Did you stumble into it? Or was it one of those, I always knew what I wanted to do type of thing?
Yeah, well, it is actually. Well, it is, yeah. Because, I've always done it. I've never not done it. So, yeah, I was, crikey. I remember mum said the first day I went to school, the first week,
Right.
they had to, after a week of being at school, you had this free time
Right.
at school where you could go and choose what you wanted to do. And the teacher said that they had to pull me away from the painting section after
Wow.
after I just hogged it the whole time. So
That's amazing.
I I don't know what. Do you know? Can I just say as well, Stephanie? I know we've had a kind of preamble to this, but
Yeah.
I think, even though I'm not diagnosed, I'm dyslexic, yeah. And
Okay.
so I think that, and when I was at school, I was never considered a bright child,
Right.
right? And I think that's because I struggled with reading and writing. So I suppose imagery, painting and drawing was my way of being able to connect with something. When you know you're given something in your hand, you're told to write at a ridiculous age, really, at 4 years old, when really you shouldn't be writing at four
Right.
years old. We should be drawing. And so I think I found what I was good at,
Right.
and I was very obsessed with that. Obsessed, literally.
That's
So
amazing.
when do you know? And I'm actually quite good at maths, although they never really found that out. Do you know?
Mhm.
Even my mum said, she says this to me. She reels these stories off now and again. But the
Mhm.
same one that she says, when I got to secondary school, I came back home and said, "Oh, I've been put in top set maths." And mum just went, "Really? I think they might have got it wrong." Do you know? Because at primary school, for some reason, I was just not seen as being a bright child. Like my sister
Mm.
was always bright, my brother was always bright, but I was never seen as being bright. But I could draw, you
Wow.
know. But anyway, I am quite good at maths. However, I was obsessed with painting, drawing, etc., etc. So yeah, it's that answer is I've always known that's what I wanted to do. So even like, I think getting to age of 14, 15, I was quite good. I was quite good at maths. I was also quite good at drama. So I was also good plays. And I remember being in plays outside school as well. And I did get asked, oh, would you like to do this? And I was like, no, I'm going to do art.
Wow.
That's what I'm going to do. So yeah.
First of all,
my mum never discouraged me either.
well, and that's what I was going to ask next.
Yeah.
Was just, I think, well, and first, I also want to say, before getting into that, that is so interesting and frustrating to me working in education, because the fact that you could draw is not something that is necessarily academically valued, right? And the importance of art and expression and creativity. I'm starting to feel it now, that there is a slow shift in terms of recognizing the practice of being creative and being artistic. Now, artistic can be a very big umbrella. Like, being artistic and creative, it doesn't have to necessarily just be painting. It could be such a multitude of things, whether that's baking or photography. It can be such a wide field of or wide arena. But there's a very slow, unfortunate, slow shift between the lens of valuing art as high as math and as high as science and as high as your sort of courses that we've always sort of held at a higher esteem traditionally. And the fact that you were able to find, this is what I'm good at and this is what I love to do, and that's been so consistent for you, I think is incredible. Like, that is, and that's more further ahead than so many people that just, they enter adulthood and still aren't sure what they want to do, right? Or they change their mind a couple times, which is okay. But it's that you had that sort of, you found what you were good at, you loved it, and you just became obsessed with it. And I think that is so incredible. And my next question was back to your mom in terms of support systems, because I do think it's also important when we sort of harness and value and encourage our children to be happy, find what you love to do, and stick with that. So that was what I wanted to know, was who was your biggest support systems growing up? Or did you always have a support systems? Were you ever met with, oh, maybe you should consider
No.
blah, 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 blah?
No. My mum, I would say she was a single parent for a while. She then married somebody, but he wasn't really a supportive, pairing. But my mum was my port of call. She was my only parent. She was the only one who said yay or nay, or gave me encouragement or didn't, and she always encouraged me. So I think though it was partly down to the fact that she was discouraged in education, and discouraged because she was from a working class family, because you didn't stay on at school, you left and you got a job. So she was told she had to leave and get a job. She was in her 20s and she went back to college, did a bit of educating so she could get out of the factory kind of floor and into maybe the offices. And I think it was coming up to that, it was that period where all working classes were now starting to be encouraged to go and think about university, because they were given money. I went to university, my mum didn't have any money, but I was given money to go to university. And I think she was so excited about the fact that her three children, were clever enough to go to university. Didn't matter what we went to do, it was the fact that we were going to university. So my sister went and did French and finance, my brother went to be an engineer, and I wanted to do art. So she's like, well, yeah, they're all going to university. That was the only thing she needed. Yes, all my three kids are going to be degree level educated, and I'm happy. So yeah, I think it was that. I mean, I did come across people when I was at university, and I remember that said they were discouraged on doing art, so that was why they were doing maths or whatever. And in fact, I had a friend who was really good at art, and she was also very clever at maths, and she came from a family who was a little bit more like professional, and she didn't do art. She got discouraged, and then lo and behold, 40 years old, working in a financial sector, decided, no, I want to go and do art.
Yeah.
Dropped everything, started a degree. She's actually on a second degree now, so she's got a fine art degree. And now she's on doing a ceramic. I don't know if it's a PhD or a degree or a master's, but doing a ceramics. And she's like
Wow.
50 now. So I think, yeah, and I think I've realised that it's really important to, if you can make money from what makes you happy,
Absolutely.
it's a good idea to go down that road rather than, because I don't know. I mean, you know, anyway, you get what I mean.
I get exactly what you're saying. And I will rekindle a conversation. I remember I was in my first couple of years of high school. It must have been, I don't know, so secondary. So 14, 15. I remember I was having a conversation with my dad. And I said to him, and I loved art. Like I was falling in love with it, and I really enjoyed like my sketches and we did art in secondary my first year. I'm like, oh, like I really like this, and it was kind of casual in conversation. And I remember I told my dad, and I said, I think that I would love to try and pursue like art. I said I always want to kind of do art on the side, but like makeup, like theatrical stage, like makeup. And like movie sets and that kind of thing. And I remember my dad looked at me and he's like, I don't know if I would do that if I were you. And I said, why? Like, what, why? And he's like, well, hun, try to stick with something that is just more secure so that you can build your life and you can be more stable. Now, my dad coming from a working class, construction based, in and out of work, depending on what the demand was at the time. So just something that's stable, something that's consistent for you, so you can just be independent, rely on yourself, and like try and do it that way. Like that art, like those types of things. Like you're traveling a lot, you're moving around a lot. It's the stress of always being in and out. He's like, try and get something more secure. Now, as a parent now, I understand why he said what he said. However, looking back on it, I remember walking away from that conversation thinking, he's right. Like it makes sense. So I leaned more with what made sense because first of all, my parents that's who I went to. Like that was their opinion was important to me, and obviously looking out for my best interest. And by no means am I upset about, like, you know what I mean? I don't hold grudge to that at all, especially as a parent, but it was something I held so true to that I'm like, no, like I do want the independence and I do want that kind of stability. So I'm like, okay, well, I've always kind of flirted with the idea of education. I think I'm going to teach art. Like that's what and that's what I pursued. And that's what I want to do. So I can kind of get the best of both worlds. And although like I absolutely, I love what I do, and working with kids in leadership roles, I love it. But that conversation has never left me. And it is something that I think about often, that if we had never had that conversation and I had never felt that hesitation from him and that fear, if he had just said, go give it a shot, go try, a part of me feels like my whole world could have been completely different. And now with my children and my son, whom teachers have said the exact same thing to me that you had said, that when it's free time or free play, my son gravitates to the drawing table and he brings home, I kid you not, like booklets of drawings. And we are trying so hard, my husband and I, just to encourage that. Whatever you want, buddy, whatever you want. Like awesome. And like try and like get him stuff and, whatever, markers and books and sketchbooks and such. But it's just understanding how important our role is to encouraging whatever it is that's going to make you happy. Like whatever it is that you feel like you're passionate about or that you gravitate towards, trying to really sort of respect and honor that, because you don't realize the weight of what we say sometimes and how that can trickle. So
yeah, I mean, I also think though that it can be affected by what's happening in the world around you at the time.
Absolutely.
I think when it was when I was at that age, what 1989, 90, I didn't even consider how I was going to make my money when I was older. But I see my kids now considering that.
Yep.
How they're going to make money, And so that is slightly, I think, affecting their decisions. It's not me affecting
Right. No, you're right.
It's them being a little bit more aware of the news, I think,
Yep.
what's going on around them. And I potentially that is a symptom of the
culture
times that we're living in, you know,
Yep.
as well. They're definitely affected by, I mean, like climate issues,
Yep.
you know, are definitely affecting them, whereas I didn't even think about it when I was young.
And that's all, no, I think that's such a good point, because when
Yeah.
you think about it, like my dad and I were having that conversation I was 14, 15. And really, was I in a position to really have that conversation about what I wanted to do for the rest of my, probably not. Like, I mean, let's be real. Nope. Sort of having that more time and freedom to sort of play around, try something, fail at it, or be really good at it, and sort of stumble upon those answers and have the freedom and space to do that. And you're absolutely right. And I don't know if that's a justice or an injustice in that way in terms of our kids, because there is that pressure to like pick what you want to do. How are you going to make money? Like versus, I mean, yes, that's important, of course, but so is the freedom to try and fail at something or figure something out before you commit to college or university, and sort of making those bigger decisions and having that freedom to change your mind if and when you wanted to. So that's also a very interesting point too. Absolutely. So my next question that I really want to ask now is, how did Sky Arts happen? Like how did, because I know that you've been on the show, oh my gosh, like a couple, was it 3 times?
3 times.
That's first of all, again, amazing, because
Oh, I don't know.
oh my goodness.
Might be sick of me.
Listen, I don't think people, I mean, if you have not watched this show, you have, it's on Prime. You need to go watch it, because there's this Sky Arts Portrait Artist of the Year, and then there's the Sky Arts Landscape Artist of the Year. And it is, even the culture of it is for me is so beautiful, because then you have your artists that are competing, and the premise of the show, correct me if I'm wrong, so that you have, let's say, your sitter, and then you have 4 hours to draw from life, right? And then you have your, there's like 50, okay, was it free spots where 50 people kind of first come, first serve, that can also sort of, no, that's, am I thinking of the wrong show?
I think they did that. They did that in
Landscape
Artist of the Year.
Yeah, no, you're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're right. You guys had an audience though. People could watch you. Like
yes, we did.
People could watch you. Right.
Yeah.
Now, so how did this come to be? Like, how did you come into this competition?
So, like, as an artist, as a kind of, I suppose, aspiring, we call it an emerging artist, one that hasn't quite made it yet. And by the way, I never consider that I've made it, even now. Yeah.
We're going to get into that. Yep. Yes, I understand.
We've always gone for competitions, because competitions are a way of, if you've got a backbone for them, do you know, because there's 100%. A lot of rejection, there's just a way of getting a wider audience, do you know, more people 100%. See it. So therefore it's kind of marketing, isn't it, really? So Sky Arts competition, it was new, but I hadn't applied for it the first year. It was the second year that I applied for it, and I got in. Yeah, that was my really, really worn out looking, haggard, old portrait that I did of myself in the evening when the kids had gone to bed, because this was in 2014, so it would have been early.
Right.
So it actually would have been 2013, the portrait. So what my youngest at the time was 5.
Right.
So I can't remember how old my oldest was. I can't think.
That's
4.5 years old and 5, what, nearly 10. Yeah, there you go. 9.5. So it was a time when I didn't have lots of time. They've grown up a bit now. I have a little bit more time now, I think, to paint. But so it was 2014 that I got in for the first time.
How nerve-wracking. Like, I watched it and I was in awe. I mean, I binged it. Like, I binged it, that show. And I was just like in awe of it, because firstly, you are like, people are naturally nervous to paint in front of people. So you have an audience watching you paint, which is something that I personally gives me jitters. Like I don't want people to watch me paint, number one. So that alone, I was like, oh my God. And then you have your sitter in front and you're painting from life and you have 4 hours. Now, granted, I'm sure a lot happens behind the cameras that we don't see, but you had about 4 hours. Then on top of the fact that you have an audience and a time frame, my two biggest points of hell in terms of art, then you have judges that are coming around. And although they are lovely and, encouraging, like, of course, however, you still recognize that you're being judged on top of the fact you're being filmed. So for me, I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my God. And like, I'd buckle, I'd cry. I said, I don't think I'd get that far. I'm like, but I would just buckle. But then to just kind of execute the way that you did. And then at the end, like, you have the sitter turn around and then pick which one they like. And I'm like, this is the most daunting thing. I was obsessed with it. I'm like watching it like to the end. But as an artist, I'm like, this is unbelievably crazy. So I just wanted to know, like, from because you were so poised and calm, and again, the painting was amazing. But I mean, I just want to know for my own and for everyone listening, what was going on internally, because I know what I would have been doing was freaking out. I just want to know the internal dialogue that you were having at that time.
I think you're pretty much right there with freaking out. Yeah. Because I don't think you would have talked to any artist there that would have been all right with the situation and circumstance. But again, it's because I suppose as an artist, you struggle so much to get seen that any opportunity, you need to grab it. Yeah.
Yes.
So it was just a case of, oh, I'll apply for this. I won't get in anyway.
Yep.
And then when you get in, you get in and you think, oh, well, this is going to be an experience. And it was quite surreal. So you go, you literally, you don't have any sleep the night before. You have to go somewhere and sleep in a strange place as well, because the first one I did was filmed in Edinburgh. So we had to go and I had to book a hotel because you had to be there at a ridiculous o'clock in the morning to like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. So from the moment you arrive in this strange city, you're in a surreal situation. So everything that's happening to you, you're not in control of. And yeah, it's nerve-wracking. Of course it is, because it's not just the painting, it's the Vox Pops. Have you ever heard of those?
No.
Pops, it's when they do little interviews with you, little mini interviews. So they go out and they do interviews. And then they do your filming. Oh, we're going to see you coming in, come on. So we're all, grab your stuff. You and you go together and walk. Don't look at the camera and just walk naturally as if you're having a conversation. But
it's
then,
not natural.
Stop there while this bus goes past or whatever. Yeah. And then just bizarrely enough, though, there was in the programs that I did, there was only ever one retake of a shot, which was bizarre.
Wow.
Because they were good at what they did. The whole team were really good at what they did. So in terms of making the full, taking the full opportunity of naturalism, they were, because if you were asked to redo it, I think, which one was it? It must have been the first one. They'd read out who'd got into the final three, and I was one of them. So we all walked over and they said, "Oh, we're going to do that again." So you're going to look surprised.
Surprised again. So fabricated.
Yeah, maybe acting came in all right, but if you weren't very good at acting, I suppose
that's amazing.
How do you do that? So they were really good at what they did, but yeah, it was so nerve-wracking. Sorry, sometimes I just completely lose my train of thought.
No, that's something that something that I noticed. I want to speak to. And again, I don't know if it came across. It came across. So it was a camaraderie. It felt like, because yes, you're in a competition, but at the same time, there's parts of you, I would imagine, that are also rooting for each other as well, because you're in the same position, you're doing the same thing, but at the same time, you're competing for a spot, but you're also understanding the feelings and perspectives that these people beside you get it. Like they really get it in terms of lifestyle
Mm.
and passion. So I just wanted to know, it came across that way, that there was parts of friendship. I don't know if that was the
So,
actual case. No, it wasn't.
well,
Okay. I
I
wanted
know
to know if there was.
for me, I wanted to win.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But then again, I have my, I am perfectly in tune with reality. And I didn't look at anybody's artwork as they were doing it, because there's no way. Because I'd be able to see straight away which ones were good and which ones weren't. And I knew where I was in that, yeah. And it's a good job I didn't, because the first time I was actually up against the winner of the whole competition in my first heat.
Which
And
was, hold on, I'm trying to think which one that was.
Christian Hook it was. It was Christian Hook.
Christian Hook, that's
and
right.
He was brilliant. I mean,
Yep,
the thing was,
Christian Hook.
he was a really lovely guy as well.
Yeah.
He was so genuinely lovely.
Yeah.
So maybe, that's where the camaraderie comes in, that generally artists are nice people.
Yeah.
I think, in
Yeah.
in my opinion, they are very nice people. And a lot of artists suffer from a disbelief in themselves.
Absolutely.
And so therefore in some ways you can't, even though I was in a competition, I wanted to be the one who went through. Absolutely. I also recognized that as soon as I saw his work, I thought, all right, well, I've not got through. He's got through, so yeah, and he was a lovely guy on top. So,
To me, it almost makes it worse. It's like, oh, I don't want to like you, but I do.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you're nice.
I mean,
Damn it.
I'm quite good friends. So the third time when I got into the semi-final, I've become quite good friends with a few of them, actually.
Yeah.
And we do. I mean, I've seen the winner of the one that I was in, the winner of the whole show. He came and opened a show for me, and I've just seen him last week at a preview down in London, because we were in the same exhibition. So, and he's a lovely guy as well.
Yeah.
What can I say? They're all lovely. But saying that, even those that have won the competition,
yeah,
still, unless they work really, really hard, they do still find it hard.
Yeah.
Because unless somebody is buying your work, or unless you've sold you, I call it selling yourself out, in terms of doing a particular style for a gallery, and they will sell your work if you do that type of work, and I'm against that as well. But unless they've done that, which I think, in a way, I don't know. Well, I know I'm not going to say, but I just, I do think there is a recognition, even among the winners, the ex-winners, as in previous years, winners of Sky Arts Watch Arts of the Year, have still found it hard to make a living. They've realised it's hard, and you have to be flexible in terms of what you're prepared to do to make money. So flexibility that I have is that I teach. I don't teach kids, I teach adults. So it's very much, I teach life drawing, portraiture, oil painting, so it's teaching what I do. And I face paint.
Yes, I saw. Yes, absolutely.
I love face painting. So I do that a little bit, and I do commissions, which I'm not always, into the commissions I'm doing. It's good if I am, but sometimes you think, oh my gosh, this is hard. It's not like I'm given creative integrity completely to do what I want. Oh, I might do something a bit odd with this one. I can't do that, whereas I can with my own work.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to be flexible, and I think the realization as an artist that you have to be flexible in order
to make it work. Yeah, and create that lifestyle that you want,
and create the lifestyle. Yeah.
Now, my next question with saying that, in terms of even the winners have that disbelief, and as artists, that was my next question I wanted to ask, was that inner critic as an artist, as an emerging artist, as a constantly learning artist. that is the biggest, I think, one of the biggest challenges is your own inner critic, because you are constantly reflecting, looking at yourself. And I've had friends look at some of my work and say, "Wow." And I'm just like, "Seriously, you're being so
Mm,
nice. Thank you." But no. And they're like, "You've got to be kidding me." And it's that constant battle, right? Where it's like, it
mm,
doesn't matter how many times you say it to me. If I don't like it or feel it, like, I'm not going to believe you. So, and I don't believe many. So it's kind of that feeling, right? Like, how do you personally combat that inner critic, or that fear, that constant anxiousness of, is this good enough? What is good enough? When to walk away? Like, you can overwork a piece, right? Like,
mm,
that's usually
mm,
where I go, is I think too hard, and then I overwork it, and I'm like, and now I don't like it. I'm gonna start all over, and I've done that
mm.
many a times. But it's just that constant inner critic that I'm always battling. So I'm just, from your perspective, and someone who's done this for so consistently and well for as long as you have, how do you combat that
Um,
voice?
so, if I was to give you any bit of advice
Mm-hmm.
about how to combat it, is to put it out there and enter it into a competition, put it in an exhibition, join a society, get it. Because until you do that, you'll be, and then it doesn't disappear, by the way, your inner critic. It never
Yeah,
disappears. We call it, well, the imposter syndrome, isn't it?
absolutely. Yeah,
You never are happy with what you've just done, which is why you're constantly onto the next piece, onto the next piece. I could do better. Why isn't my, that's not good enough. I could do better. Um, so yeah, I think you have to put yourself out there in that way. Then other people can start to feed back as well,
yeah,
and that's how maybe you can keep going. Uh, Holy, if I was just in my studio every day, all day, doing my own work and not putting it out there,
mm-hmm.
I think I wouldn't be as happy. I don't think. I think because there is that feeling that you're never good enough. Even when you're
Yeah,
really good, you're never
yeah,
good enough. Yeah. So
absolutely.
yeah, it's, I suppose it's fine. It's finding that balance and not not being completely just isolated. I think
Yeah,
if you're just isolated, then yeah. I mean, in imposter syndrome, I think a lot of creatives have it.
absolutely.
It really doesn't help when people turn around and say, "Well, if you're not making money for it, why are you doing it?" And you think, well, you don't really understand creativity if you think like that. Because
Yeah,
it is. But we all have to make a living, so I think going out and teaching as well, other people, at least getting something from me. Um, I suppose if I was just painting all day long every day, I'd feel I was being a little bit selfish. At
yes,
least I'm giving back a little bit by going out and teaching people who want to learn,
yeah,
and they appreciate the skills that I'm, imparting on them or whatever. So at least, yeah. So I suppose it's a part-time balance, isn't it?
yeah.
Put
And
yourself out
creating
there,
creating
make yourself
networks.
feel a bit better. Yeah.
Yeah,
When
and
you put yourself out
communities.
there,
Yeah,
then when you get in your studio, although you feel satisfied at the end of the day, there is still that, oh, I mean, I've been painting all day on a commission, and I take a photograph of it at the end of the day. And
yeah,
so when I'm back in the house, I can kind of look at it, oh yeah, turn it upside down, flip it on the, as you do, turn it
yeah,
all directions. What's wrong with it? Why isn't it working yet? Or what can I improve? And all I want to do now is drop everything and go back into the studio and continue. It's very difficult to have a cut off. I
it's
think kids
addictive.
help.
I find it addictive.
Having to make a pie, having to tea, having to
Make
at least
dinner. That's right. Yep.
having to get some sleep, having to but I could easily go back now and continue, forget about everybody else who needs me,
Yep.
and keep painting until I'm satisfied.
Yes,
It's
and
that
chasing that
obsession.
feeling. And
Yeah.
then, are you ever really, like, are we ever I mean, yes,
Are
are
we
we
ever
ever
happy?
really? Probably not. And actually, you brought up the most, oh, such a beautiful segue. is the feelings of guilt and the idea of having the ability to cut yourself off. And I can do that very easily when I'm painting, or when I'm, and I say painting, I think anybody listening that can, interject their own, whether it's baking or whatever passion is that they
Yeah.
love to do, interject that in. But I want to know, as a fellow mama, I want to know how you did this in terms of trying to balance the personal life of being a caregiver and a mom and giving
Mm,
them enough attention, and all the things that we need to do, like making dinner, making a pie, like whatever we
yeah.
have to do when people rely on us, but also trying to balance a passion, a profession, because I struggle so much with it, because I have those moments where it's like, I love you, I love playing Lego with you, but all I want to do right now is like cut myself off, and I would love to go paint, and I would love to go, I write sometimes, and I would love to just kind of seclude for a bit and write. And there really is that I battle sometimes the feelings of guilt and division of time and attention, because I know there's a lot of things that are on me, in terms of responsibilities and things, but there's this little piece of me that I feel like I have to make sure that I leave time for, because
Mm.
I need that too. So I just really wanted to know how you balance the pressures of guilt and attention between personal and professional.
Well, I think because I before I had kids, so my first child, I was 31. I'd
Mhm.
already forged a career
Mm.
in the artistic. I was
Yeah.
exhibiting, I was doing commissions, um, and so I had a studio.
Okay.
I rented out a studio at the time, so it was a job, and
Okay.
I think that helped. Yeah.
Was your
In
studio
terms,
separate? It was separate from your place?
yeah, it was at the time.
Okay.
After
I
I
think that's
had
important.
Yeah, after I had my second child, I decided to convert my garage into a studio. And so
Nice.
now, but it's separate from the house. It's not another room in the house. So I have to walk out of the door, leave
Mhm.
everything behind, and go into the studio. So it's having that separate space and saying, right, this is the amount of time I need. So I'm going to do this amount of time in the studio. And I by doing that, by saying it's my job,
Yep.
that's how I achieve it. I kind of need an uninterrupted time if I'm in the studio painting.
Yes.
So sometimes I've done it once, I've done everything and they're fine in the evening and I've gone back in. I've done it then, but generally, if I'm needed as a mum, then no, I don't. I'm here, I'm in the house. But yeah, those feelings of guilt, God, yeah, I remember them.
Yeah.
Really bad guilt feelings. Really feeling like you're not you're not looking after your kids right. And I know I've given my kids. My kids have never
Gone
gone to a
without.
school club because I've only ever worked part time. My part time's work was always fit. In fact, two of them wouldn't have even coped with after school clubs. I mean, I tried one of them with beavers, cubs. No, I tried two of them, both of them with beavers and cubs, and well, one of them got excluded.
Yeah.
And one of them just couldn't cope. So no. So
Yeah.
that was that. It's like,
But
right,
just think,
yeah, lunchtime. In fact, no, holiday club as well. Never, couldn't really. I think I did it once, and they just no. So right, I can't work during the holidays. Then that's that.
and just having to divide, and but even organizing that, right? It's like, hey, I have to be here at this time. Like, this is what I
Yeah,
have to do right now. This
yeah,
is what my kids need. Like,
yeah,
it's having even just that alone. Like, we say it, I think, so casually, but it's like, nope.
mhm,
Like, I knew that I could, for those 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I had to be here. This is
yeah,
where I
yeah,
had to be, and
yeah.
it's that division that I
Mm,
think is, it can be overwhelming at times, and because we have to sort of that ping ball of that sort of back and
mhm.
forth, right? And I get it, and it's hard, and I
Yeah,
think even regardless of age, I mean, my littles are little, they're 6 and 4, but I can also imagine that, I mean, you don't worry less as a parent as they get older, it just changes, right? So you don't necessarily physically need me as much, but that sort
mhm,
of dependency in some way when you're with me and I'm mom, like that's still, I think that's still so present regardless of the age. And I think what you said is so important. Just having, when you said you had converted your garage into a separate space and that became the job. And
Mm.
that has, for myself, has made a huge difference. So we have a little spare room that we converted, and now I use it as like a little studio like
Mm.
space. But even to get there, like even for me to be like, you know what? I need my own space. And when I go in here and I close the door, you cannot knock on the door and you cannot bug mommy. You have to go and, or I'll set them up, or what have you, or go get daddy, or whatever it is. But this is more like uninterrupted time. And but it was having a separate space and sort of
Mm.
that boundary of time and working around it as best as I could, but just to just sort of make space for that and create that. And then when I'm even in here and sometimes I can hear the arguing or the yelling, and I sit
Oh,
here and I'm like, nope, nope,
no.
nope, I'm here. Nope. And like I'll put headphones in. I'm like, nope,
Oh,
do
right.
not bother. Nope, not here. Like, mommy, nope. And I'm just like, and it's hard. It's so
Oh, it's
hard.
very hard.
And it's just to be consistent with what I'm doing
Mm.
and to try and keep making space for myself, my own passions, my own creative outlets, in order to show up for my family in the best way that I can, in the better versions of myself, hopefully, as
Yeah,
I
yeah.
keep trying. Um, because yeah, I also know
Mm.
the other side of that where I wasn't making enough time for getting things that I was really interested or passionate
Mm.
about. And I'm like, that wasn't a very good version of myself for anybody. So just how important making that space like really genuinely is.
Yeah.
So I very much, and if anyone had a takeaway, I think that would be one of them. And I have one more question because I have to ask this question. So a few of my colleagues and I, we had a wonderful debate. It got heated at one point. So I wrote it down. I'm like, I'm gonna ask Catherine, a fellow artist. So you ready? It
Mm-hmm.
might be a very easy answer for you. Here we go. So my friends and I were chatting, and we all like to consider ourselves creatives. Like we're all use different outlets, but I think we're all pretty creative, photography and painting and writing and etc. And a friend of mine had said or asked me a question that said, "Do you think that creativity is nurtured, or do you think creativity, like someone has the natural ability to, let's say, paint, like a natural Monet?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "Well, I their opinion was that an artist is born essentially. Like they always kind of possess the skill. Like Monet kind of always had that skill. It was about harnessing that skill, but like there are people that are more inept to just paint or have that, or to draw. And there are some people that are just not meant to paint." And then I kind of looked at her and I said, "Oh, no, no, I disagree." And they're like, and we kind of went back and forth. And it was hilarious because we adore each other, but it got heated where I was like, everybody is born a creative. It's about the time you take to nurture what it is that you are passionate and creative with. And in enough time, you can hone in that skill to what it is you want. But it's about, it may take a person longer to get better at it. I said, but I think that everyone is born a creative, and it's about how you keep being creative as you get older and how you kind of nurture that. And then she was like, "Nope." And I'm like, we just went back and forth. I said, "This is getting nowhere." So I'm like, I'm going to ask another fellow. I'm going to keep asking artists and creatives what they think. If it's something that, are we just born artists and some people aren't? That's my question.
Yeah, yeah. This is the most difficult one,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
So what do you think?
Because I think the answer is yes and no.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So, I thought about this one, and I thought, does it depend on what you're encouraged to do, what you're exposed to? Does
Right.
it, And so I'm thinking, okay, my mum once said to me, we're all born with a talent.
Right.
And it's a case of finding out what that talent is and then nurturing it. Yeah.
Yes.
So that could
I
come
agree.
back to the thing of what your parents encourage you to do or discourage you to do. Yeah.
Right.
So like I have 3 children who are now at this stage where one's off to university next year, one very much knows what he wants to do, another one is still kind of like this. And I think, what's the difference? What have I? Because my daughter has got a place at Oxford University, which is like the top university or one of the 2 top universities in Britain. Yeah. My son, my second one, wants to be an animator. Yeah, and he's already animating. I've taken him to see a fellow animator down in London, gone round the studios, so he knows that he can do that. He's been exposed because I've helped him be exposed, so he now feels that that's a possibility. Yes, he could go and do that.
Okay.
My third one, I'm still unsure about what he's destined to be, but he sometimes takes computer bits to bits and stuff like that, so I'm thinking computer engineering, something like that. But so I think it depends on what you're exposed to, plus your natural tendencies to be obsessive about something, because I do think it requires a bit of obsession as well.
I agree.
So so I'm a creative.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've always chatted with my daughter's kind of going to do philosophy as well, philosophy, economics and politics. And I think she's almost, I think philosophy is quite a creative subject, and animation, quite creative. Engineering as well.
I agree.
Creative, if that's so. And we've always chatted, and I've always said anything's possible. You follow your dreams. It doesn't matter if you get into debt at university, just do it. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
My stepdaughter is following her. And in fact, my stepdaughter, who's 33, once had the conversation with me. She wanted to go and do art, and because all her friends were doing art. And we actually looked, because she was doing psychology, art and history, but she loved psychology. And she was really good at psychology. So we sat down and said, well, what do you feel has made you decide you want to do art? And she said, well, my friends are going to do art and, like this. And I said, what do you feel that you are more passionate about in terms of your subject? She said, well, psychology, I'm really, really into it. So I said, well, why don't you just go and do that? Oh, but my friends aren't going to do that. She ended up doing psychology, and she got a master's in psychology. So I think maybe if you come from a background where throughout your childhood you are encouraged to do what you're interested in, then that helps you nurture a talent. Yeah, you might have. In terms of whether it's a natural, I think creativity is different to being able to draw, by the way.
Ooh, layer. I like it.
Yeah. So as a teacher of adults,
yes,
I feel that I've come across, and by any means, you can't put people into such narrow categories, but I do tend to come across those that can draw what they see. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So they can look at something that's 3D and translate it 2D. They can kind of understand the angles and the shapes that they see. And I think that's a little bit mathematical. Yeah.
Me too. Yep.
They can put it onto a flat surface. And there are those that just, anything that they touch, they can paint, they can sculpt, they can garden, they can, they don't look at the recipe, they create their cakes or whatever, or cooking, they're very creative of mind. But those people who are creative can't necessarily haven't been taught how to draw necessarily, and if they haven't got it, then you have to teach them it. And it's generally those that are more creative. If they can also learn to draw, they might have the edge sometimes over the ones that can just draw, and maybe the technical draw.
I was just going to say, so the technical versus the, what word would I use? So the technical versus what you feel. Again, that ability to, oh boy, that's a layer for me. I need to think about that one.
Creativity, maybe that's a little bit more natural. but you can still teach it. You can still, like, you know, if you've given enough hours and enough resources and enough good space and enough good tutoring, you can learn to be creative. If you're given enough teaching in terms of the skills to learn to draw and you're prepared to put in the time.
Yes. Oh,
Because
goodness.
that's another thing. Some people think that it's a natural talent, and those people that think it's a natural talent, and then if they're not prepared to put in the graft to learn how to draw, then they won't ever learn how to draw, because they'll automatically think, well, you know. However, you know, again, I've come across people who've come to me to learn how to draw, and it's just clicked with them.
Yeah.
As in, like, oh my God, yeah, nobody's ever told me that I have to actually have my drawing surface very near to what I'm looking at to draw, you know. So I do think that both things can be taught to a certain degree. If drawing was given the same time as maths, writing, reading, IT now, at school, everyone would be able to draw. Yeah, it'd just be another skill. Whether or not they'd be able to draw, because you need the obsession to put in the hours to be able to draw, which is why I know for a fact that my middle child will be a great animator one day, because he's already taught himself how to draw, and he's coming to my life drawing classes as well now. So he's got the obsession.
It's the obsession. I agree.
Yeah. He's got absolute obsession. Is that any waking moment he has that he's not doing anything like schoolwork or asked him to do, which isn't a lot, by the way. he is either drawing, animating, reading books with drawings in, so he likes graphic novels, watching documentaries on animation. He knows exactly which are the best animating schools to go to. He knows, you know, he laughs at me because I'll say, oh, Disney this, oh, that's not Disney, Mum, that was Pixar, you know. And he knows exactly which he knows directors of different animations. He's obsessed.
He's obsessed. And I think I think to live creatively in any way, to live or to try and live off of yourself, like just whether you try and open a business, art, whatever it is, I think you have to be obsessed. I think you have to be obsessed. And I also think you have to put in the hours. Absolutely.
Your job is not a 9 to 5 job. Well, until you have kids, that is. You have to kind of close the door and say, I need to be a mum now. But when I didn't have kids, I did a job for money in the morning, and then I would go into the studio and I wouldn't get home till 7 or 8 at night. So I would be working from 8 in the morning, sometimes until 8 at night.
Yeah.
I didn't even have holidays. What was that? You know, I didn't even have summer holidays. I was obsessed.
And I think you have to be.
Yeah.
And I think let Steve Jobs, I think, said it has to be an obsession, whatever you do. Otherwise, nobody would do it. Like, if you're not obsessed with it, he's like, you're not going to be successful. And however you coin the term successful, is successful just doing it as part-time for yourself, is successful making money off of it. He's like, that's up to you.
Yeah, if success is making money, then you'll be forever failing, won't you?
Yeah. Never. Yes. No, 100%.
You cannot. Money cannot be the focus.
Cannot be the only. Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Catherine, thank you so much. This was amazing. Thank you so much for chatting today. I truly appreciate it. It was amazing. And again, I'm gonna post a link to your website and your social media page. If people do not know about your artwork, they will after this. But they absolutely need to, because it's the most stunning pieces I've ever seen. And I have to say, it was, I think the last portfolio you had posted, I think, was called Personal Space. It was during lockdown, right? And it was some of the most, I don't know how to word this, I want to say hypnotizing, mesmerizing, where I was looking at it and it looked, it was photographic, but not it was photographic in the sense and nostalgic for me because it
Mm.
reminded me of those kind of when you sit before the smart devices where pictures and images were just so readily available. But like my mom would have these big booklets, these photo album books. And every now and again, when we went downstairs to add to the photo books, we would go through our photos and our photo albums and going through the pages, the sticky pages where we would put in new images. That's what your work reminded me of, or that exhibition piece, those pieces reminded me of, was going through a photo album book because they were having these like nostalgic memories of those candid shots where you're almost interrupting what was going on. The
Yeah.
camera was like invasive, but it was invasive in the sense that nobody was paying attention to the camera because they were having so much fun in the moment that an
Mm.
image was taken candidly and the moment kept going. Whereas now, in terms of our phones, images, it's more so we're very aware of the camera, right?
Mm.
And that whole collection, I was just it was beautiful, and I kept going through it. So I will have the links in our show notes below, and everything, and ways of which people ever do want to get a hold of you for commissions or pieces, they need to and they should. So thank you so very much for chatting today.
Oh, thanks, Stephanie.